For everyone who knows me, it is no secret that I am a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. I have read all the original books, all 8 of them, and I loved them. They were all buddy reads. I read them with some friends, discussed each and every story here, the long novels, and also the novellas. But these weren't even the first books I've read about Sherlock Holmes. But it was always my goal to read all the original books, which I did in these beautiful luxury editions. But the first book I've read about Sherlock Holmes was a non-fiction book. It was this one, From Mr. Holmes to Sherlock, where the whole story of Sherlock Holmes was told. From the time where Arthur Conan Doyle wrote the first Sherlock Holmes stories until the present time, where we have multiple movies and series based on this character. And how we got there, it was super interesting and intriguing, which is why I read the originals next. But I haven't only read the books, I have also watched the movies with Robert Downey Jr. I, of course, have watched the BBC series with Benedict Cumberbatch. And let me tell you, this is where my obsession with Sherlock Holmes began because I loved this series. I watched it multiple times. I can't even tell you how often I watched it, but I'm loving it still. And I also watched some series inspired by Sherlock Holmes, so with characters that are like him, like Dr. House or The Big Bang Theory. And the newest series about Sherlock Holmes that I've watched was Young Sherlock on Amazon Prime with hero Fian Stiffen as Sherlock. And I also loved that and realized that this is a book adaptation of a series where I have the first 3 books on my TBR, and I already put them on my 26 for 2026 list. So here they are. These are the German versions of Young Sherlock Holmes by Andrew Lane. This is book 1, but before we start to talk about it, of course, I did the only right thing here, and that was to also buy book 428 to complete the series. So, in this vlog, I can read now the whole Young Sherlock Holmes series, and I couldn't wait to start. So, I already did this, and I'm already halfway through book 1. The English title is Death Cloud. I will show you the English cover here, and I'm already really liking it. It is a story set back in the 1900s, 1800s. I'm not sure, but definitely a historical setting, like we know it from the original Sherlock Holmes books. But in these ones, Sherlock Holmes is way younger. He is still a student, he still goes to school. And in book 1, he needs to spend his summer now with his aunt and uncle, which he's not amused about because he doesn't know this aunt and uncle. He rather wants to be with his older brother Mycroft, but Mycroft needs to work. Their mother is not feeling well, and the father is not in the country. So there is no other option for Sherlock than spending the summer with his aunt and uncle. And spending the summer with them is not the nicest experience because they don't want to have him there. And the housemaid is also not a fan of him. So he spends most of the time outside, exploring the nature, exploring the city, and he meets Matty in the city. Matty is a street kid, and Sherlock and him become friends. And Matty tells Sherlock about a very mysterious death where Matty saw a mysterious cloud fly out of some window. And days later, there is another corpse, and the person died under similar circumstances than the first one. There was also a mysterious cloud. There was yellow powder close to the corpse, and both corpses have pustules on the whole body. So the people fear that it is the Black Death. But Sherlock doesn't believe that, and he starts to investigate together with Matty. And what bees have to do with everything, we need to find out. There is definitely more behind these deaths, and I can't wait to find out what it is. At this point, I only have a very, very vague idea, but not a real solution for this whole murder case. Everything is based on what Sherlock already found out, and I definitely want to continue reading, which I will do now, and I will update you after I finish this book. I finished the first Sherlock Holmes book and I liked it very much. It had the typical Sherlock Holmes vibes that I love, but it also was different because Sherlock Holmes is way younger. He has a lot to learn to become the person we used to know, but I'm really, really liking to be part of this process to see how Sherlock learns, how he grows, how he gets into the whole investigation business. And surprisingly, I also like the relationship between Sherlock and his brother Mycroft very, very much. You can clearly see how much Mycroft loves his brother. I also know now what was going on with the bees, and I know what Lord Maupertuis wanted to do. I hope we see our villain again because the story is not 100% closed here. We have some open plot points that I hope we will revisit later in the series. But I think this was a really, really good start for the series, even if there were some things that were problematic. But that has mostly to do with the historical setting, not only, but for example, the violence here and that children get hit when they did something wrong, something that was common back then, but hopefully unthinkable today. I'm also very, very intrigued to learn more about the housemaid of the Holmes family because something's going on there and I want to know what. She's way bossier than she should be. She has more confidence. It is more like this is her household, not the household of the Holmes, and she's just serving. So also, I hope we will revisit that. And I also want to see if we will meet our common enemy of Sherlock Holmes in the series, James Moriarty. We will see, but this was a very good start. And I already continued with book two. I'm very, very late with my update here because right now I am halfway through book two of the series, Red Leech. And like in book one, we have a mysterious prologue. This one set in the rainforest where two men search for specific animals to catch them. And then for the main story, we go back to Sherlock Holmes, to his summer holidays that he spends with his aunt and uncle, to Amyas Crow, his mysterious teacher that is no teacher. He is part of the Pinkertons, a detective group from the US that searches for people who commit crimes during the Civil War. So I can already see the parallel to the original Sherlock Holmes book. We also had a story there with the Pinkertons, which is quite exciting. And I really want to dive in more into the story and the friendships, especially with Matty and, of course, also Virginia. I want more teaching of Amyas Crow because he shows Sherlock how to investigate, and I love, love, love that part. And we also go way deeper with the relationship between Mycroft and Sherlock here, and we can really see how much Mycroft loves his little brother and that he thinks everything that happened to Sherlock is his fault because he hasn't taken care of Sherlock. And I loved that emotional part here. But it is also very, very exciting that we have a new case now because Amyas Crow should investigate in the name of Mycroft Holmes and the government to search for the murder of Abraham Lincoln. His last name is Booth. I forgot his first name. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad with names. But I hope you know which man I mean because that is true history. We search for the man that shot Abraham Lincoln in the theater. And of course, Sherlock's get right into it. He wants to investigate, even if Amyas Crow and his brother said to him he should do nothing. It is way too dangerous. He runs right into the danger, almost got killed, and now Matty is kidnapped. And the only way to get Matty back and to catch Booth is to travel to the USA, to America, because Booth and Matty entered a ship to the US. And now Sherlock, Virginia, and Amyas are also on the way, and the travel gets way more interesting than expected. That's all I will say here to the plot of the story. Like in book one, I like the storytelling. I like the action parts. I like the development of Sherlock. And I can't wait to see how this all will end. Maybe we also get a little romance here in the future. We'll see. It is still a young adult series, so I don't expect that part. But we had little glimpses here and there in book one and two so far. So I will continue reading now and I will update you after I finish the book. Woohoo! I finished Red Leech and I had a great time with it. As with book one of the series, I can clearly see the inspiration Andrew Lane took from the original Sherlock Holmes book, and he spoke about it in the afterword of the story. That he took details like Sherlock boxing or that Sherlock plays the violin, and that he thought about how Sherlock got there. So, in this book, for example, Sherlock had his first violin lesson and he really had fun with it. So he will pick that up in the further books. And that is how we grow our character Sherlock Holmes that we know from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And I'm loving this fact, these details that portray the growth of Sherlock that we know. But I also really enjoyed the crime and mystery plot that we had in Red Leech. We had a full on chase throughout northeastern America here, starting in New York, where they landed with the ship. We had a lot of action and a lot of Sherlock on his own mission to rescue Maddie, to find out what happened to him, to get him back, and to even prevent a much more bigger and dangerous situation that had to do with the Civil War in America. I don't want to go into too much detail because of spoilers, but I really enjoyed this book. And as a 34-year-old adult, I'm always surprised how violent these young adult books are in some points. But I guess it makes sense with it being an action crime story. So I don't mind that. I don't think about it too much. And I know that I would have read and loved this book as a young teenager. So I think that's okay. That's age appropriate. And I can't wait to continue now with the next book, which is this one. The English title is Black Eyes, and I can't wait to find out what this is about. I am halfway through the book now, and as the books before, I'm really liking this one. It could be my favorite one of the series so far because it is the most personal story we had so far. Most of it is set in London, and Sherlock visits his brother there together with Amyos Crow. And when they arrive, they see Mycroft with a knife in his hand and with a dead person in his office. So he is the only suspect of this murder, and the police thinks this is a very, very clear case. But Sherlock and Amyas Crow are not so sure. They are sure that Mycroft didn't do it. So they start to investigate, and of course, Sherlock gets in dangerous and life threatening situations. There is a lot of action, and I'm really liking that we see a lot of development in Sherlock's character. So he is still learning the whole deduction thing, which he is famous for in the originals. But you can see how much he already learned. He starts to question things, and I'm really, really loving that. We also get mentions of playing the violin or that he needs to learn how to fight. You can also see how he's connecting the dots with things he already experienced in book one and two. So, Andrew Lane did a really great job to develop Sherlock's character, to make him the person that we used to know. And I can't wait to continue reading, which I will do now, and I will talk to you after I finished the book. And I finished Black Eyes now, and like book one and two, I really liked it. It was full of action, full of tension, full of cool Sherlock Holmes vibes. And I loved that we focused on Mycroft and Sherlock here. It was a lot more personal because Mycroft was the one in danger, and that includes Sherlock being in danger. And we focused on a lot of international politics that included Spain, the US, Canada, and Russia, because we spoke a lot about the selling of Alaska, which happened in history. So Andrew Lane included real historic facts here, which I loved. Some of the important characters from Russia here were also real persons from history. So I really love the fact that Andrew Lane did that and that I could even learn some things here because as a German person, I never thought about the whole process of selling or buying a whole country like Alaska and what happens politic wise or what can be the consequences when a certain country is involved in that. So, very, very interesting here, very intriguing. There was only one thing that I couldn't understand because it didn't make sense to me. And that was the fact that Mycroft said he needs to take his brother with him to Russia because he wants Sherlock with him. So Sherlock can't be kidnapped to pressure Mycroft into some things or something like that. But 5 seconds later, he sends Sherlock alone into London to run some errands, and that didn't make sense. And Sherlock was also a lot of time alone when they were in Moscow. So, of course, he runs into danger again and again, and things happen. I won't go into detail here. I don't want to spoil too much of the plot. But one other detail I want to talk about is that Sherlock learned the first time here about altering your look by an early form of prosthetics and with makeup, because that is also a thing he did a lot in the original stories. So when he is an adult, and we also saw that in the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr. So I'm always excited to see details like that, that Sherlock learns about it, because all these little things make the Sherlock we learned to love from the originals. So I am very happy with book 3. It was a bit shorter than the books before and a bit shorter than book 4, which I will read next. I already have it here. In English, this is called Firestorm. I know nothing about it except the teaser we had in the end of book 3, which was that we will learn more about Miss Eglantine here, the housemaid of Holmes Manor. She is a very mysterious character, and I really want to learn more about her, like Sherlock. So I can't wait to continue the series. I already transferred my bookmark into book 4. So I will continue reading, and we will see each other when I'm halfway through the book. And I'm already back with the next update. I am halfway through Firestorm now, book 4 of the series. And what I can say here is that we get 2 cases in one, because the first case is that we find out what is going on with Miss Eglantine and Holmes Manor. Why she's so in control of Sherlock's aunt and uncle. So that is followed up by a lot of background of the Holmes family in general, especially Sherlock's uncle and Sherlock's dad. So that part was super interesting, and I'm interested to see if we get more of that in this book and the future books, because I don't see that this storyline is already finished. I have a feeling that it will continue in the series. We'll see about that. But let's talk about the second case that we got here, and that is that Amyas Crow and his daughter Virginia left the city. They didn't leave a note, they didn't say goodbye. Something must have happened, and Sherlock immediately wants to investigate because he knows that's not normal at all. And he and Maddie find out that Amyas Crow and his daughter went to Edinburgh. So that is where the journey goes in book 4 now, which is exciting. I love that we get to see different settings throughout the whole series. I mean, we had London, so England in general, we had France, we had the US, we had Russia, and now Scotland and Edinburgh. So, influences of different cultures, different social behavior, different political systems, and I'm here for it. I like to explore everything with Sherlock together, and hopefully we find out what happened with Amyos Crow and Virginia, because I also want to know. There were two mysterious guys in the city and they wanted to tell Amyos Crow something. So that is where the whole case started. And now we need to investigate to find out more. Halfway through the book, we are already on our way to Edinburgh, and maybe the Paradol Chamber is also involved here. We had a scene where one of the members were seen at one of these train stations. So the Paradol Chamber is definitely an ongoing topic for the whole series since the first book. And I can't wait to see them besieged in the end of the series. But we have a lot going on until then, so let's stay on track here. Let's stay with Amyas Crow, Virginia, and Sherlock searching for them. And I will continue now and will tell you more after I finished Firestorm. Here we go with my final update for Firestorm. I finished book 4 now, and the first thing that I want to say, how dare he? Why does Andrew Lane suddenly write cliffhanger endings? I really want to continue with the next book with Snakebite, and I already started the book, but more to that later when I get halfway through it. First and foremost, I want to speak about Firestorm. We explore Edinburgh here, getting a little bit into the culture, into the historics of Edinburgh, and the whole mystery around the city. I know there are a lot of ghost stories. There are stories about people killing other people to sell their corpses to doctors because they did a lot of medical research there on corpses with a whole med school in Edinburgh. So there was a whole business for getting corpses, which sounds absurd, but it was the time here, and that was real historics. But we also had a whole gang situation going on in the city. And of course, they took interest in Sherlock and their friends. We left with Sherlock searching for Amyas Crow and Virginia because they were fleeing from Farnham to Edinburgh. Some people wanted to get to Amyas Crow, and we learn now that the situation is very, very serious, and their enemy is more than dangerous. So we had a lot of action going on again. We had also Sherlock being kidnapped and tortured again. This guy must be so traumatized. I think he got kidnapped and tortured in every single book for now. So I don't want to be in his position, and I don't know how he can still doing the things he does, but he's okay with it. And I think you need this action for a YA series to keep the readers invested. So I was just glad we had the characters reunited, that we could work out the whole situation with our enemy here. And then I was shocked by the end of the book. As I already said, we had a cliffhanger end here, which led to me already starting the next book in the series, which is set in China, at least parts of it. So, as you can see, I can't wait to continue with Snakebite now. So, I will do that and I will keep you updated. Just a quick update before I continue reading. I am halfway through Snakebite now and I'm really liking this book so far, as the other books in the series. And I know now why the book is called Snakebite, and I'm not happy about it. So, not happy about the result of the snake bite. I really wished we could have rescued this person, but we had a pretty sad ending of the first half of the book. So, I want to get over it, which is why I really want to continue reading. But before that, I wanted to talk to you about the book. After the events of Book 4 and the massive cliffhanger, we are now on a ship, more specifically, a trading ship on the way to China. So, a completely new adventure for Sherlock, and this time without his friends. So, without Matty, without Amuse Crow and Virginia, he is on his own, and he is not there out of his own free will. I'm saying that, but he has no other choice than being on the ship. He can't go back to England that easy, so he stays there for a month. He will be back to England in probably a year. So it is a pretty long journey from the UK to China and back. But for now, we are in China. The first third of the book was the journey to China and Sherlock figuring out how to fit in the team of this ship, how to help them, how to work on a ship. And he made a new friend there, Wu Chang. He is the cook of the ship, and Sherlock not only learns to speak Chinese, he also learns about Tai Chi. So, this is his first impression to learn real fighting. I was a massive fan of that. We also had a meeting with some pirates, so a lot of action here, a lot of tension, and I loved every single second of it. I can't wait to get more into the suspense plot of the book now, because we arrived in China now. Sherlock made a second new friend there, a guy from America, and his family lives now in China, or more specifically in Beijing. And something is going on there, something that has to do with the only guest that they had on this trading ship. I also already learned a few things, not only about Asian fighting sports, but also about silver water. So, a form of healing back then and what that can do to the body. So, as always, super, super interesting. But I think that is all for now that I wanted to tell you. So, I will continue reading now and I will talk to you after I finish the book. Maybe I delayed my final update for Snakebite so much that I'm already halfway through the next book, Knife Edge. So you can get two updates in one here. Let's start with Snakebite. So the story that is set on sea and in China. The second half is set in China, and Sherlock is figuring out a big crime there, which leads to him preventing a whole war between the US and China. So that is good. Did he do it in the name of the Paradol Chamber? We don't know, but it is a possibility. And I'm still heartbroken that Sherlock lost a friend in all of this chaos. But I really, really like to learn a bit about Chinese culture, especially the culture in Beijing here, that we learned about political conflicts that we had in the time. A lot of them focused on colonialism, and I also loved seeing Sherlock growing up. He is the first time on his own in this book. He's still a teenager, but he learns to fight for himself, to fight in general. He wasn't very good in that in the former books, but he can do it now. So he earned a lot of independence in book 5, and I'm really, really appreciating that. But the ending, when he read the letter from his brother, that broke my heart because of the information Sherlock is getting there. And I can understand that for a moment he thought to stay in China, to maybe stay on the ship and sail around the world. But I'm very, very glad that he still decides to go home to see his brother, and that we can see how everything will develop from there. But not in this book. This book ends with the decision to go back home after a lot of action, and as I said, Sherlock preventing a war. But for the first time, Sherlock wasn't kidnapped. I count that as a win. And I already continued with Knife Edge with book 6 of the series. And this book is set now in Ireland. And we focus on spiritism here. So, in contacting and speaking with ghosts, there is a man going around saying he can not only speak with ghosts, but he can contact certain ghosts, which is unusual. And not only the British government, but also other governments, like from Russia and the US, are now trying to figure out if he says the truth or if he's lying, because if he says the truth, he could reveal a lot of informations from spies that were killed. So, of course, the governments want to check this out. And the guest from the British government is Sherlock's brother. And he takes Sherlock with him after Sherlock arrived in Ireland from China. So the story continues right there, and we not only have to figure out if this man really can contact certain ghosts or not, we also have a mysterious monster going on in this region. Some people swear they have seen it at night and it is going around killing people. And yes, it also killed one woman from the household they are staying in. So, this is also a mystery Sherlock needs to figure out. So, as always, there is a lot going on, and we also see old friends here in this book and reunite with them, which made me half happy. There are still some conflicts and things that they need to talk about. So I hope that will happen in the second half of the book and that we figure out what is going on with the monster and with our medium. We know at this point if he's lying or not, but there is still a lot to figure out besides that. So, my prediction for the second half, a lot of action. Hopefully, we are over the kidnapping of Sherlock at this point after it didn't happen in book 5. And I hope he will figure out the whole situation with Virginia. So, my fingers are crossed for the second half of Knife Edge, and I will update you after I finish the book, which will probably later today. We have a heat wave going on in Germany right now. It will stay at least 2 more days, so today and tomorrow. And I won't leave my apartment in this time. There should be 39 degrees outside today. I already have 29 degrees in my apartment. So I try not to move at all and will use the time to read. So wish me luck for that, and we will see each other again after I finished. You know what? It is too hard to care about makeup. I came fresh out of the shower, so my hair is wet, but I'm ready for an update. The last update was 1 day ago, and in this time, I not only finished Knife Edge, I also am almost halfway through Stone Cold, book 7 of the Young Sherlock Holmes series. So, time for an update. Here we are. And I really liked this book. It had a little bit of a different vibe, and the afterword of the author explained why. So that makes sense to me. It is not the adventure we had in the books before, where Sherlock explores different cultures, different societies, and learns about these people like we had in Russia or China or even the US. So we are in Ireland now, which is pretty similar to the UK. And it is all set in one place in this castle they stay in. And Sherlock is getting really good in figuring out what's going on. So, on his best way to become a detective, or is it called in English a private investigator? No matter what, he is becoming that, even if he doesn't realize by now. And I'm loving every single bit of it. The new thing he learned in this book was magic tricks, which he was taught by the medium we had in this book. So, the medium he accused being a fraud, and as always, I love these little glimpses of the Sherlock he will become in the original Sherlock Holmes book. And we also had, as always, a lot of action. There is a lot going on, of course. Sherlock's life is in danger once again, and there is a lot of tension. I'm also loving that about these books. It doesn't get boring. So it was super entertaining, but now at the end of the book, we finally need to say goodbye to some of our old friends now. In this case, Amuse Crow and Virginia Crow. I don't think we will see them again in books 7 and 8 because I think their storyline is over. Sherlock is in a new state of his life, but I loved that we also saw Rufus Stone and Maddie again. And we also had a revisit of some villains we knew from before. I already guessed that they were behind some of the things that happened in this castle, and I was right. The Paradol Chamber is also involved in here, and I'm really interested to see how this storyline will continue in the further books because some things changed here by now and that could lead to them making different decisions. We will see. So that's it for Ireland. And for book 7, Stone Cold, we go back to the UK and start in London, where Sherlock lives in a hotel, and his brother Mycroft decides that it is time to continue his education. So he had some time off school for the last 2 years. One of these years he spent with Amuse Crow as his teacher and learned a lot of things about practical life. And the other year he was on sea, he was in China, and now that he's back, he is now 16 years old, and his brother decides that Sherlock goes to Oxford now. One of his old friends becomes Sherlock's new private teacher and should do everything to prepare Sherlock for college. But of course, it is not that easy. I mean, that is the easy part for Sherlock, but we also have a mystery going on in Oxford. We have one of the first morgues there, and someone is stealing parts of the corpses. Nobody knows why or who did it, so Sherlock starts to investigate. And there's also a very, very mysterious house outside of Oxford. And every time Sherlock comes close to it, he feels super scared. And the man that lives there is also super mysterious. We doesn't know a lot of him so far. As I said, almost halfway through the book. I have one chapter left to be halfway through the book. And I think it is really, really interesting to learn more about the job of a pathologist. Is this the English word? I don't care to look it up. I hope it is right. And as always, Sherlock is really clever in collecting his informations. So that is super cool. I also love that Matty went with Sherlock to Oxford, so we have him still there. But it is a new phase of life for Sherlock. And we also see glimpses of the original Sherlock, the adult Sherlock, because teenage Sherlock already said that he wants to go back to London and live there once he's finished college. He's still trying to figure out what he wants to do job wise. So he knows he wants to do something in the direction of police, but not police itself because there are too much rules. He doesn't want to wear a uniform. That's not him. And his brother Mycroft always says he wants to see Sherlock working in a bank or so, which is also not Sherlock. So I hope we get to see that in the end of the series with book 8, the decision to move back to London and to start his new life as a private investigator. we will see about that, and I will continue reading now. I'm really inhaling these books by now that I have nothing else left on my June TBR. So there are still 3 days left of June. I definitely want to finish book 7. I don't know if I can also finish book 8, but I want to try, and I will give you an update probably tomorrow. 2 days later now, and I can say I edited yesterday, but I still finished Stone Cold and really liked it, like the rest of the series. I repeat myself here. It was full of action, it had a super cool story, and I was really intrigued by our mystery that was going on here with the mysterious man in the mysterious house that wasn't mysterious in the end when everything was explained, which was close to the middle of the book. And I really liked how we learned more about this villain and that Sherlock found a new teacher in him because he was a former policeman and he's a lot into investigating crimes. So he does a lot of research, and that is something that we also know from the adult Sherlock. So, something that he probably learned from our mysterious man here. And then we also have the case Sherlock needs to investigate in this book, where a house moves in the middle of the night just to be at the same place where it was before when the person who lives in this house awakes in the morning. So that was also pretty cool. And what was also very cool, I think I haven't told that in my first update. I know I've told you that Sherlock has a new private teacher there in Oxford, but I never told you his name, or more his pen name, because it is Lewis Carroll, the author of the Alice in Wonderland books. And he is also a math teacher in Oxford. So, a super, super interesting and weird person. But I really liked reading about him, learning more about the author, because I didn't know that Lewis Carroll was his pen name and that he was a math teacher in Oxford. So, again, I learned something. And I also really, really liked that we can see how the dynamics between Matty and Sherlock change a bit in this book. And they reminded me a lot here of Sherlock and Dr. Watson. So his companion, because Matty also becomes his companion here, is always at his side when they investigate, tries to help him, trying to find clues himself, and they really, really work well together. So, thumbs up to that. I really liked it. And now I couldn't wait to start the last book of the series, which is book 8, Nightbreaker. And now, at the last day of June, I am halfway through the book. Can't wait to continue, but before I want to update you. As you can see on the cover here, there it is in German, yes, but this story is set in Egypt, but not the first half, because we are in Holmes Manor now for the first time, the place where Sherlock and also his brother grew up. But the reason why we are there is a very sad one, because Sherlock's mother died. She had tuberculosis and died because of it. And we also meet Emma now for the first time, Sherlock and Mycroft's sister. She's a very special character, but I won't say too much. You can meet her yourself when you read Nightbreaker. The only thing that I want to say is that the Young Sherlock TV series is mostly inspired by Nightbreaker. It is not a TV adaptation because the case is different, the persons are different, the plot is different, but I can clearly see the elements that inspired the plot of the TV adaptation. So, what I can say, if you saw the series, you won't have spoilers for the book and vice versa. And I really like them both. They both have the same vibe, and I really like to see where this story is going now because we had a prologue here that probably was foreshadowing and that shocked me a bit because we saw a character from before from the other books that I thought we would never see again, and this was a whole different context. So I need to continue the story now to find out how we get there and how everything will end. Hopefully, this will also conclude the storyline of the Paradol Chamber that leaded us through every book of the series. I will find it out and will tell you after I finish the book and when I come back for my final update. Here we go with my final update, not only for the last book of the Sherlock Holmes series, but also for the series in general. I said it in my update before that book 8 is the one that is most similar to the Young Sherlock TV series. They clearly took the most inspiration from Nightbreak, but it is not the same story. Moriarty, for example, is nowhere to be seen in the Young Sherlock Holmes books. We have Maddie here instead, and I really, really liked Maddie. He is, of course, not a James Moriarty, but I didn't expect that, so that's okay. He is more of a Dr. Watson to Sherlock, and I loved that. You can clearly see all the things Andrew Lane took from the original Sherlock Holmes books. I cannot say that enough because it is so important to me that he stayed true to the originals. And this was really a great journey with the whole series. But it was also a great end to this story. I loved that we could get a happy end for Emma, for Sherlock's sister. I loved that Mycroft was so involved in this book, but not in the way I expected. And Sherlock really needed to stand up for himself, to stand up for what he really believed in. And I loved that aspect. He really grew up during these novels and even needed to face one of his old friends in the end. So that situation was full of tension. We also had a lot of action, like always. It is part of the series. It is the young adult murder mystery crime vibe, and I loved it. I was super entertained by it, not only in Nightbreak, but for the whole series. I'm so glad that I finally read these books because let's remember, book 1 to 3 were on my TBR since 2015, so 11 years now. And I definitely made the right decision to change that now, to also buy the other 5 books that I've missed and do a full vlog of the series. I mean, let's face reality. I've read all 8 books now in 3 months, 5 of them in the last month. So I really was invested. I really enjoyed my time with it. And I can recommend the series, even if you have watched the TV series before, or vice versa. There are different plots, so you don't know the story if you read the books or if you saw the series before. And I really like that, even if I also think it is a bit weird that the series is an adaptation of the books, because I don't see it as an adaptation. I see it as a standalone series that was inspired by elements of the Young Sherlock Holmes books, but that's okay. I can live with it. I enjoyed both. And the only thing I was a bit disappointed in book 8 was the conclusion of the whole Paradol chamber, because I don't really see it as a conclusion to this plotline. The Paradol chamber is still active. They are still doing things in world politics to gain power. And that is not part of the original Sherlock Holmes books. So nothing that is concluded there. And my personal feeling when I finished Nightbreak here was that there could be more books coming, but that is not the case. Book 8 was published in 2022, so 4 years ago. It is the final book of the series, which makes me a bit sad, not gonna lie. I would have preferred to read more of the Young Sherlock Holmes series. I want to read it until Sherlock decides to move to London, to move into the apartment in the Baker Street in London. So, where the journey starts in the original books, but we don't get there. So, there is clearly a time span between the Young Sherlock Holmes series and the originals that is okay. I would have preferred otherwise. I already said that. And the most important thing in general is that I really, really enjoyed these books. So, not only Nightbreak, but also all the other books in this series. They will definitely stay on my shelves. I won't unhaul them. I can see myself rereading them at some point, which is always a clear sign for me that the books were really, really good. So, if you are interested in Sherlock Holmes, you should give them a chance. Try them out. Maybe they are also for you. And if you want, you can tell me in the comments what is your favorite Sherlock Holmes story. Have you a preferred TV series or movie? I really, really love the BBC series with Benedict Cumberbatch, but I also really liked the new TV series with young Sherlock here. Like this video if you wanna follow my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!